OPPO has been advertising the Reno5 Pro 5G to the moons and stars and how incredible the phone's video recording capabilities are. But is the camera system on this phone really worth it, or is it just hype? Watch this video until the end to find out. Hi everyone, my name is Amit and you're watching Mr. Phone. In this video, I'll be reviewing the OPPO Reno5 Pro 5G and letting you know whether this phone is worth buying or not. But before we begin, please go ahead and subscribe to the Mr. Phone YouTube channel if you haven't yet, and do hit that bell icon so that you're in the know of our latest videos. With that said, let's get started. Since this phone is being heavily marketed as a camera-centric device, let's straight away dive into cameras. In terms of specifications, there's a quad rear camera setup that comprises a 64 megapixel primary camera, an 8 megapixel ultra-wide camera, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel monochrome camera. For selfies, you get a 32 megapixel front camera. With the OPPO Reno5 Pro 5G, you can shoot videos at up to 4K 30fps using the rear camera and up to 1080p 30fps using the front camera. But these are just numbers. How's the actual quality? Check this out. 4K videos shot during daylight exhibit saturated colors. Stabilization is fine, but I do feel that the camera does struggle dealing with pans and movements. This is why I really wish this camera had optical image stabilization. Now, OPPO does include an ultra steady video mode which tries to mimic optical stabilization electronically. So let me know in the comments if you think ultra steady video 3.0 is enough, or do you feel that this camera should have had OIS. You can also shoot portrait videos on this phone. As you can see in the sample, there's a good amount of blur around the subject, although the feature does require more polishing. Moving on, the camera also has an AI highlight video feature that can optimally adjust the brightness and colors in a video. This is a video sample shot using the AI highlight video turned off. Now, this is the same scene shot with the AI highlight video turned on. And while the end result does look a tad better than the original, I can't seem to spot any major differences when it comes to color reproduction. However, dynamic range is definitely better with the feature turned on. Moving on, videos shot during the night came out just fine. Colors look okay, but noise is pretty evident in the footage. Also, the camera does seem to overblow the highlights a bit. One of the fun parts in videos is the dual view mode that lets you record footage both from the front and rear cameras simultaneously. Coming over to the selfies, videos shot using the ultra steady video mode look better in terms of stabilization when you compare it with the rear cameras. Color reproduction is saturated, and I really feel the camera's exposure handling could have been better. As for the videos shot during the night, here's a video sample for you to decide. So this is the AI highlight video sample taken from the front camera on the OPPO Reno5 Pro 5G. The ultra steady video 3.0 is also turned on. This is a 1080p 30fps video sample. So let me know, how does the quality look, how does the audio sound, how good is the stabilization. I am walking right now at a good pace. So yeah, tell me in the comments, how does this look, how does the pan look. As for still images, people who are fans of saturated tones will appreciate the photos taken from the Reno5 Pro 5G. Shots taken from the primary camera exhibit good details and dynamic range. Yes, some photos do tend to look a little over sharpened, but it is only when you zoom in you realize that's not the case. Shots taken with the ultra-wide camera also turned out well. Colors look good and dynamic range is also on point. However, because of a smaller sensor used for the ultra-wide camera, the photos lack detail. Also, the color science of all the three lenses, the primary, the ultra-wide and the tele lens, doesn't match at all. I mean, the photos look good on an individual level, but it would have been better if only the colors could have been consistent across all the three lenses. Moving over to the low light imaging capabilities, photos taken during the night turned out decent. Now details are not the camera strength at night and it is evident in the photos when you zoom in. However, turning on night mode does improve the overall sharpness and detail. Selfies are handled nicely for the most part in well-lit conditions, however the camera does have a tendency to overexpose the highlights. Portrait selfies are also done well since the camera does a good job of separating the subject from the background. Overall, I would say that the cameras on this phone are decent for the price point, but if you still have any more questions, you can share them with me in the comments. Also, please feel free to connect with me on social media. I'll drop all my social links in the description below. Now let's talk about the phone's design, and in this department I have to hand it over to OPPO. The Reno 5 Pro is undoubtedly a gorgeous smartphone. Just like its predecessor, it comes in a thin and light body weighing at just about 173 grams and measuring 7.6 mm thick. This translates into a good in-hand feel. Now this phone is tall, but because of the curved sides on both the front and back, operating the Reno 5 Pro with one hand is relatively easy. At the bottom there's a dual nano SIM slot, a primary microphone, a USB Type-C port and a single speaker. Sadly, this phone loses out on the 3.5mm headphone jack and the dedicated microSD card slot found in its predecessor, the Reno 4 Pro. Moving on, the phone's power button is found on the right while the phone's volume buttons are found on the left. The buttons on this phone are very clicky and responsive and I have no complaints here. The secondary microphone, the phone's earpiece and a design for Reno branding are found at the top. Coming over to the rear panel, this over here features Panda glass protection. Over in the top left corner, there's a quad camera setup. There's also an OPPO branding in the bottom right corner. Now this phone does have a camera bump, but it is nowhere as pronounced as you would find it on a OnePlus 8T or a Galaxy S20 FE. By the way, this right here is the astral blue color of this phone and it looks incredible. I like the color, I like the frosted matte finish, I like the shimmer, especially the way light falls on this rear panel. I mean, you have to see this phone in person to appreciate its beauty. The phone also comes in a starry black color option. For authentication, you get an optical in-display fingerprint sensor as well as face unlock. Both of these are extremely fast and accurate, and there was not a single time that I faced a problem while unlocking the device. Overall, I would say that the phone's build quality is top notch. The glass front and rear coupled with the aluminium frame ensures that this phone feels premium in your hand. The OPPO Reno 5 Pro 5G sports a 6.5-inch Full HD Plus Super AMOLED display at the front. OPPO calls this a 3D borderless sense screen because of its ever so slightly curved sides. This display also features a 90Hz screen refresh rate and 180Hz touch sampling rate. So apart from the fancy name, the display on this phone is hands down beautiful to look at. Colors look vivid and punchy and the brightness levels are more than adequate on this panel. Despite OPPO claiming that the phone has a 92.1 screen to body ratio, I still feel that this phone could have had slimmer bezels around the display. But anyway, not much of a deal breaker. Apart from this, you get a ton of display options to play around with, such as an automatic dark mode which itself comes with customizable settings. Then there's your usual eye comfort, screen timeout, screen color temperature toggles also present, and not to forget the OZ visual effects setting that boosts the colors on the panel. By the way, I'm also a huge fan of OPPO's always on display, which coupled with edge lighting looks awesome. Of course, edge lighting only kicks in whenever a notification drops. The display's general performance is bang on. This is an HDR10+ certified panel and watching content as well as playing games on this OLED display is an absolute pleasure. For that matter, at times I usually find myself simply gawking at the panel and just appreciating how beautiful it looks. Using it under the direct sun is also not a problem since the panel can get plenty bright. Overall, this is an A+ display. The OPPO Reno5 Pro 5G comes with the latest ColorOS 11.1 software based on Android 11. And apart from the pre-installed apps that you get on this phone, and mind you, there are a bunch of them, I have zero complaints with ColorOS. The software on this phone is clean, smooth and responsive. Animations and transitions look slick, and there wasn't a single moment I felt that the software was going to bog down the phone's performance. And it's not just the looks. There are a bunch of things that I really found useful in ColorOS. For instance, the ability to multitask using apps in floating windows. Extremely useful while watching YouTube and browsing the web on Chrome if you'd ask me. Many people would also appreciate the privacy features on offer, such as App Lock, Hide Apps, and Private Save that lets you hide your personal stuff like photos, videos, documents, etc. There's also a system cloner that lets you switch between two separate profiles with the help of an alternative fingerprint ID. Neat. I'm also happy to report that throughout my review period, I did not come across any ads on this smartphone, not even one. To be honest, I wasn't expecting this, but hey, this is good news. Rounding up the software bit, I can say that I'm pretty impressed with ColorOS 11.1. I mean, this software has definitely surpassed my expectation levels. I know there are many pre-installed apps that shouldn't be there in the first place, but you can always uninstall them. Apart from this, the software is fluid, it's functional, and I can bet that apart from my single criticism, there's a lot to like here. Then again, if you have any doubts regarding ColorOS, then please feel free to reach out to me in the comments. I'll try to respond to as many of you as I can. The OPPO Reno5 Pro 5G packs the latest Dimensity 1000 Plus SoC from MediaTek. And this is also the first phone in India to come with this new chipset. Apart from this, you only get the phone in a single variant, that is with 8GB LPDDR4X RAM and 128GB of UFS 2.1 non-expandable storage, which costs 35,990 rupees. Performance on this phone has been good. Throughout my review period, I did not come across any lags, stutters or slowdown. Everything was smooth. Interestingly, this is the first MediaTek chipset that I have come across which doesn't overheat. I mean, it does get warm to the touch, but that is only when you put it under some serious load. Games run flawless on the OPPO Reno5 Pro 5G. I played Asphalt 9 Legends and Call of Duty Mobile at the highest graphics settings, and the phone was able to run them with ease. Apart from this, apps load fast, and the 8GB RAM on this phone ensures that multitasking is handled well. One thing that I don't like about this phone is the single bottom firing speaker that can easily get muffled depending on the way you hold the smartphone. Now, the overall performance of this speaker is just fine. I mean, the audio output is loud and clear, but I won't call them crisp. Hear this out. One last thing I would like to talk about in the hardware bit is the system vibration and haptics. I'd say when it comes to touch input throughout the UI, be it when you unlock the phone or enter the multitasking screen or even while typing something, haptics are done very well. Now I know this is a completely subjective matter and you can only get to know about this when you test the phone personally in your hands. But I'd like to report that at least according to me, I think the haptic feedback on this phone is sweet, precise and on point. No complaints. However, the vibration intensity for receiving calls or messages could have been a tad better. One of the best things about this phone is its battery life, or should I say charging speeds. Let me explain. The OPPO Reno5 Pro 5G packs a 4350 mAh battery under the hood, which is a fairly large battery by today's standard. As for the battery life, I was comfortably able to last a full day with this phone on a single charge. I'd also like to point out that I consistently used to have around 25 to 30% battery left in the tank before I went to sleep. Standby times on this phone aren't great as well, and during my testing every morning I'd notice a dip of about 12 to 15% in the battery level consistently. To give you an idea about my usage patterns, well, I use Telegram, Instagram and Microsoft Teams a lot. Lately, I've also been addicted to Stick Cricket Live. Apart from that, I watch a lot of YouTube as well. You can say around 1 to 1.5 hours every day. And my day never ends before watching at least a few episodes of Dragon Ball that I've been watching on the Reno 5 Pro for the past few days. That said, even if you're a heavy user like me, you shouldn't be bothered much about the battery life. I say this because the phone can top up from 0 to 100% in just about 30 minutes using the supplied 65-watt fast charger. So battery life and charging speeds get a big thumbs up from my side. This brings us to the final question. At a price of about 36,000 rupees, should you buy the OPPO Reno5 Pro 5G? I'd say, why not? For what it's worth, you get a gorgeous OLED display, the MediaTek Dimensity 1000 Plus SoC, which coupled with ColorOS 11.1 ensures that you get an optimal performance under any load. Battery life as well as charging speeds are awesome. That said, I know the camera performance on this phone is satisfactory, but I guess you should be just fine for the most parts. As for the alternatives, well, I can't seem to suggest a direct competitor to this phone that you can consider buying. However, if you are willing to put in around 35,000 rupees on a new phone, I'd say raise your budget by about 5 to 6,000 rupees and get yourself a OnePlus 8T or a Samsung Galaxy S20 FE. You won't regret it. And that was my review of the OPPO Reno5 Pro 5G. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video and do share this with others. Also, let me know in the comments what do you guys think about the smartphone and whether you'll buy one or not. As always, thanks for watching, and for all the latest tech content, stay tuned to Mr. Phone. See you in the next one.